Shalom, Daoud. Shalom, shalom, shalom. I like to say, this is the YouTube channel, RPK, Resurrection Prophecy Kingdom. We need a lot more subscribers, so please share the video. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe, like, hit the bell for whenever we post more updated videos. Give me 1 second before I get ready to start. This is going to be Genesis, the mystery of Genesis 1 revealed part 2. Sorry about that. And if you can, tag whoever you would like to tag. And tag the people that you would like to tag. All right. And tag whomever. And if you have any questions and concerns, or you want to just ask or tell anything, make any statements, just put it in the chat, and we'll try to respond to it. Well, I will try to respond to it whenever I get a chance. So once again, this is the channel RPK, Resurrection Prophecy Kingdom. Okay. All right. Shalom, everyone. Hope y'all having a fantastic morning. If you're celebrating or you practice Shabbat, I hope you're having a great Shabbat. Y'all know over here at RPK, we read the Bible differently. We try to keep it in context. So all of the things that was destined or given to us under the law of Moses, we're no longer adhering to those ordinances, laws, and etc. because we understand that that was the old covenant. We're inside the new covenant in Christ, where He is our Shabbat. He is our rest. And when He said in Revelation, "Behold, I make all things new," we took that to mean all things being new, giving us the teachings of the gospel of the kingdom, which was love your brothers as Christ loved the disciples. So if you do that right there, you go through your baptism and all them things that Christ stated, you will be kingdom prepared. You will be a kingdom citizen. So today we're going to go over the part 2 of the mysteries of Genesis 1. A lot of people, when we open the Bible and look at Genesis 1, we forget that this is actually Hebraic in nature. We forget that there's a backstory when Moses was actually writing this, and we forget that Moses actually learned from Egypt, from the Egyptian mindset. He was Josephus let us know that he was one of the smartest in Egypt at the time, and he was able to teach them information also from the things that he gathered, even though he was under their leadership the whole time of their educational backing. He still was able to learn a lot of things himself, I guess through just the wisdom that he had. But so when we open the Bible, starting in Genesis, we automatically assume that the Father is trying to teach us about astrology and things dealing with the environment and what's the words? What's the words I'm looking for? Things dealing with like migration and erosion and all of that stuff. And we just get it and we'll take it from that perspective. We don't understand that the Bible itself was written with just one ideal in mind, which was to worship the Father. So that's the whole point behind the Bible. It takes us through different stories, different covenants on how mankind was started out great and failed and was supposed to go back to greatness, and what the Father required of us in order to have a relationship with Him. That's just what the Bible is. And in the last lesson, or the last series, part 1, we found out that heaven and earth itself actually represented the temples. Okay, there's a heavenly temple and there was an earthly sanctuary per se. So, or there was a heavenly realm temple, and on our realm down here, they had a earthly realm temple. And this is what Genesis 1 is actually explaining. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. That heaven and earth dealt with temple typology. It wasn't talking about literal heaven and earth. Once again, the Father wasn't trying to introduce evolution or any of those things to us or to them who He was writing to. He was actually explaining to them when Moses was using the wisdom from the Holy Spirit to explain to those Israelites that lived at the time how the Father used creation in order to explain His will. So He had to use something that they was familiar with, which was the mythos behind, I think, what was it? They had their own, Egypt had their own version of Adam and Eve. I can't think of their names right now. But He was using that information that they could relate to in order to explain or expound or to give them a history on how they came to be and how His services was actually supposed to be handled. So we're going to walk through that real fast, and then we're going to start off Genesis 1. We're going to read 3 through 5, and we're going to break that down. I'm not here to bore you, but I am here to give you all shalom, shalom. I am here to give you all a break or a perspective, I think, that's more Hebraic in nature, which is not, which is going to be different from what we have learned over here in the Western world. I'm going to try to give you a perspective on what the Hebrews would have thought when they looked at it. So let's get ready to begin. First of all, we're just going to show you about heaven and earth, right? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. Let's look at some of the Hebraic motifs in nature, and we're going to be able to go into the lesson. So the first thing, I believe it was in Isaiah 6. And if you don't, we're going to upload my first lesson pretty soon so you can catch it on the channel. I think we're going to upload it tomorrow, lesson number 1. So you can catch them live, or you can wait to the admins upload them to the channel. Okay, so now, Isaiah 6 and 1. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw also the Lord sitting upon the throne. So we got the Lord on the throne, high and lifted, and His train filled the temple. So we let it be known that the train of the Lord was in the temple. So His throne was in the temple, right? So, give me a sec to get this situated. All right, so now we go to Isaiah 66 and 1. Thus said the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye build unto me, and where is the place of my rest? So we see right here that in the beginning, in Isaiah 6, we see that the Lord was in His throne, and His train filled the temple, which means that the throne was inside of the temple. And then in Isaiah 66, you have Him saying, Heaven is my throne, which means the throne that he was sitting in was called heaven. So in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. We got heaven being the throne. So throne would be the temple. He was inside of the throne, and his train from his robe filled the whole temple. So the throne is inside of the temple. So as heaven is his throne, that means heaven is the temple. So in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. So if that doesn't do it, if that don't do it for you, right? You might be like, no, I don't see it. We can go to a New Testament reference, right? You got Matthew 24. Matthew 24 and 2. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. So he just prophesied the destruction of the temple. And listen how he ends the chapter. But we know there was no chapter or verses break back then. So this is just a continuation of one complete thought. Listen to what he says. Verse 34. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. So, right here, he's telling them, heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. And if you go up here, he was talking about the temple being destroyed, the temple passing away. So you have it in Isaiah, he letting it be known that the heavens was his throne, and inside of that heavenly realm was his temple. And here we have it in Matthew that he was letting it be known that the heaven and earth on the ground, on the earth, was also the temple. So in the beginning, God created heaven and earth. He's talking about the temples, okay? This is all about temples. So he's not talking about literal heaven and earth. So once you go to Matthew 5, and I'm going to segue, then I'm going to come right back. Once you go to Matthew 5, right, talking about the law of Moses, this is exactly what it says. Matthew 5, what? Is it? Right here, 18. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law till all be fulfilled. So he was saying when the law was going to pass, right? Till heaven and earth pass. This is the temple. Once again, this is the temple. So if we're talking about the law of Moses, are we supposed to be doing the law of Moses today? No. Christ told you right here, when heaven and earth pass, then the jots and the tittle was going to start passing from the law. And heaven and earth passed when the temple was destroyed. That's what heaven and earth represents. So now, let's get ready to go through Genesis 1. Okay. We're just going to do verses 3 through 5 today, and we're going to break it down. So right here, so in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. This was talking about the temples, okay? This was talking about the temple. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Well, I guess I can start with 2 real fast. We're going to start with 2 real fast. And the earth was without form and void. So there was no formlessness inside of the temple. The temple was void. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So you got the Holy Spirit right here moving upon the face of the waters. So now, let's start with verse 3 today. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and morning were the first day. So now, that's a lot of things that have been said right here in these verses that if you don't understand the Hebraic mindset, you will get lost. Once again, if you do not understand the Hebraic mindset, you will get lost and you will start thinking about the sky and the moon or light and absence of light and all this stuff. Understand, there was light day and night before there was a sun and moon. How is this possible? Once again, how is it possible to have day and night without a sun and the moon? If you're thinking that this is talking physical, then you have been lost in the sauce already, because it's impossible to have day and night without the sun and the moon. So this is not what he was talking about. He's not talking about the sun and the moon. And I want us to look at key terms here. Let there be light. There was light. The light was good. He divided the light from the darkness. So in the beginning we have light and darkness. He called the light day and the darkness night. Now notice, evening and morning was the first day. All of these is going to be important. And throughout all the scriptures dealing with temple worship and all that stuff and etc., you have to understand what these terms mean, or what's the point behind these terms. So, first thing first, if Genesis 1 was about the creation of the temples, because it was, and then you have the temple getting ready to finally be created, and or the temple to be full, to be filled with the things that goes inside of it, and you have the Holy Spirit there aiding, then what do you need for a temple? Okay, for the temple to actually start functioning, what do you need? I hope that we all said a high priest. I hope we all understand that this is now dealing with the inauguration of the high priest, the first ever high priest. Because at this point in time, Christ was already around. Now we're talking about him getting his job duty as high priest to the Father. Now, if you be like, well, what are you talking about? What are you going on and on? So now it's time to prove it. Now let's go back into the Jewish mindset, or the mindset of our ancestors, and let's use scriptures to break it down. All right. First place we're going to go. We're going to go to John. That's the first place we're going to start at. Look how John started off. Holy Spirit inspired John, right? Who knew the Torah, knew the Tanakh, right? Knew the dark meanings and the dark sayings, because he had the Holy Spirit. He wasn't confused at all. So now, look how John started the Genesis narrative, just in case. Just in case you are wanting to deny. All right. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything that was made. So now, you go back to Genesis 1. This is exactly what's going on. In the beginning, God created the heaven and earth. And if you look up the word God there, it's Elohim, which is plural in deities, which means more than one. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then you have down here the Spirit, the Ruach of God. So you have you got the plurality of God right here in Genesis 1. So now, and it says, and the earth was without form and all that stuff, and it said, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. So let's go back to John. So we have caught up with Genesis 1. All things were made by him. By who? By the Word. All things was made by him, and without him was not anything that was made without anything made that was made. Sorry. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. Let's keep reading. And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. So, you have it literally right here. It's John's explaining what Genesis 1 is talking about. Right here. The point behind Genesis 1, John is explaining it. See, people thought it was about the earth and the planets and the stars and the moons and the sun and the chickens and all that other stuff. This is what people think Genesis 1 is about. No, John is actually explaining what Genesis 1 was about. Don't forget, y'all, Moses and all of them, they wasn't Americans, okay? They wasn't westernized. Their whole culture, even when you look at Paleo Hebrew, when you look at that language, they had a language inside of a language. So they had a pictorial language, which meant words, and then every element of that word actually told another story. So this tells you that their mindset, they was on something totally different. They was on all kind of spiritual, metaphorical, analogies, allegorical tips. They wasn't on a literal tip like we are in America. So now, he tells you, in him was life, and life was the light of man, and the light shineth in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. So, you go back to Genesis 1. God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw that the light was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. Back to John. And then we're going to go into more of this figurative language. Back to John. John 1:5. And the light shineth in darkness, and darkness comprehended it not. So this is the division between the light and the darkness, okay? The light was right there in the midst of the darkness, but the darkness comprehended it not. So there was a division between light and darkness. So this is where we at right now. So now, let's look and more of the allegorical things or the figurative things. We want to start in Numbers 16. And we're going to read 46 through 48. Don't forget, I said Genesis 1:3-5 is about the inauguration of the high priest. So now, let's see if I can support that through scriptures. Number 16:46. And Moses said unto Aaron, take a censer and put fire therein from off the altar, and put on incense, and go quickly into the congregation, and make an atonement for them. For there is wrath gone out from the Lord, the plague is begun. And Aaron took as Moses commanded, and ran into the midst of the congregation, and behold, the plague was begun among the people. And he put on incense and made an atonement for the people. Now, who makes the atonements? Aaron. Aaron was the high priest. The high priest was the one to make the atonement for the people. And he stood between the dead and the living, and the plague was stayed. So now, there was a plague with Israel, you know, Israel background with all the idolatry and all that stuff, and the Father sent the curse down and etc. But the point here, you got Aaron being the high priest, making an atonement for Israel, And his duty was to stand between the dead and the living. Once again, Aaron, being the high priest back in the Torah, when the curse came, when the plague came, he made an atonement. And his atonement made him stand between the dead and the living. So you go to John now. You go to John 11. And look what's said right here. Let's start at 24. Martha said unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at that last day. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection. So for my people who think that the Bible was talking about literal people coming out of the grave, like Night of the Living Dead or whatever you have envisioned, no, that's not what the Bible's talking about at all. So anybody that's looking for a rapture or talking about at the end of times, people going to come out the grave, and I ain't seen nobody come out of graves yet, that's not what the Bible is talking about, okay? Christ said, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die, believeth thou this. This was Christ offering eternal life for anybody that believes in him. He's not talking about literal life. He's talking about things that goes beyond this realm. But look what's going on here. Christ is standing between the living and the dead. Just like Aaron, the high priest, stood between the living and the dead during the plagues back then, you had Christ coming in the first century, standing between the living and the dead, dealing with the curses at that time and period. So you have the high priest role. One of the high priest's role was to stand, was to mediate, was to set atonement, was to separate or be a in-between life and death, light and darkness. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay? Let's keep going. Exodus 25. Let's start at verse 31. Now we're talking about how Christ was the light, right? So now, remember, Moses went up into the mountain. And when he was coming down, he was supposed to make everything in the tabernacle after the pattern that he saw while he was in the heavenly temple, right? So while Moses went up on the mount for the 40 days, looking in the heavenly temple, he came down with the understanding, and he said, okay, now I got to use things on the earthly realm to show the patterns that I saw in the heavenly realm. So once again, I have to use earthly things as an allegory, as a shadow, to show what I actually saw occurring inside the heavenly temple. So this is one of the things that Moses created, which was a shadow or an allegory for what he saw in the heavenly temple. So now, Exodus 25:31. And thou shalt make a candlestick of pure gold. Of beating work shall the candlestick be made. His shaft and his branches, his bowls, his knops, and his flowers shall be of the same. And 6 branches shall come out of the sides of it. 3 branches of the candlestick out of the one side, and 3 branches of the candlestick out of the other side. 3 bowls made like unto almonds, with a knop and a flower in one branch, and 3 bowls made like almonds in the other branch, with a knop and a flower. So in the 6 branches that come out of the candlestick. And in the candlestick there shall be 4 bowls made like unto almonds, with their knops and their flowers. And there shall be a knot under 2 branches of the same, and a knot under 2 branches of the same, and a knot under 2 branches of the same, according to the 6 branches that proceeds out of the candlestick. Their knots and their branches shall be of the same, all it shall be 1 beaten of pure gold. And thou shalt make the 7 lamps thereof, and they shall light. And we have light being introduced. They shall light the lamps thereof, that they may give light over against it. Right? And I'm going to read the rest of it. And the tongues thereof and the snuff dishes thereof shall be of pure gold. Y'all got to understand, gold back then was to represent divinity, something divine. When they didn't have a way to create an aura around something. So instead of creating, try to come up with these elements and burning these things and using alchemy to create a mist, so the mist look like a aura of light, and going into a chemical laboratory. Instead of doing all of that, they use gold. And when sunlight hits gold, it reflects off the brightness, which looks like an aura. So gold always represented divinity. It represented something divine, something pure. It represented something like light. Of a talent of pure gold shall he make it with all these vessels. And look that thou make them after their pattern, which was showed thee in the mount. So now, if you don't know any historical information on how the Jews of the time of the old time thought, you have no idea what's going on with this candlestick. You have no idea. Like, what is all this candle, this and that? Moses went in there. He came down. He was supposed to make a pattern. We saw a candlestick. He came down with a candlestick. Well, my brothers and sisters, I am here to help you today because we have the work left over by our doctrine killer, the historian Josephus himself, who was a Jew, who was a priest that lived inside the 1st century, as well as a live witness to the end of the old covenant, which you guys call the end of the world, because you guys think when the Bible say, not all of you guys, I know some of you guys has listened to our videos and subscribed to our channel and etc. Some of you guys understand when the Bible speak of the end of the world or the end of the age, it was talking about the end of the old covenant, bringing in the new covenant that has no end. So if you guys really want to know what the Bible's talking about and what the book of Revelation and Matthew 24 is about, it's about Jerusalem being destroyed in the 1st century by the Roman army, taking out that heaven and earth, taking out that temple, and a new temple, a new heaven and earth, which are the people, and the covenant was formed. But that's a lot of words I said. You can go to my YouTube channel, this one or my own personal one that I would show at the end to get in-depth information and teachings about that. So now, let's show you what this candlestick actually represents. All right. Antiquity of the book of the Jews. And if anybody don't have a book of Josephus, I implore you guys, please invest in this understanding. Antiquity of the Jews, book 3. Chapter 6, and we're going to go down to section 7. And I always do that. Okay, let's do it the other way. Sorry, y'all, I try to get ahead of myself. All right, so 7. This is what we have right here. Over against this table, near the southern wall, was a set of candlestick of cast gold, hollow thin, being of the weight of 100 pounds, which the Hebrews call chincheres. If it be turned into the Greek language, it denotes a talent. It was made with its knops and lilies and pomegranates and bows which ornaments amounted to 70 in all, which represented pretty much, I believe, the 70 nations of the world at that time, that they thought of 70 nations, by which means the shaft elevated itself on high from a single base. So you got 6 on each side, and you got you got the shaft coming up, then you got the 6 on each side, and you got the one in the middle, which creates 7. But let's keep reading. And spread itself into as many branches as there are planets, including the sun among them. It is terminated in 7 heads, in one row, all standing parallel to one another. And these branches carried 7 lamps, one by one, in imitation of the number of the planets. These lamps looked to the east and to the south, and the candlestick situated obliquely. So now, when Moses went into the heavenly realm and he was looking around, remember, the Bible said, heaven is my throne. So everything in heaven is his throne, his kingdom. The heavenly realm was all in heaven. So now, you have a little bit more of what that actually means right here. The lamps represented the number of planets that Moses saw when he went into the heavenly realm. So Moses was supposed to come down and make a shadow after the patterns that he saw in heaven. So Moses did not come down and create 6 planets and a sun. No, he created the menorah. And the menorah is an allegorical representation of the planets that he saw. So now this should actually explain to you what's going on in the tabernacle. You see one thing, which is small, that they all can relate to, like candlesticks, and then on top of the candlesticks, he put fire, so you have the light. But you realize that that candlesticks actually means something more. It means great. Remember, Moses was creating things after the pattern. He was using a pattern. He wasn't using the exact thing. So Moses saw 6 planets and the sun. He came down and created the menorah. Okay? Once again, he saw 6 planets and the sun. And he didn't come down and create 6 planets and the sun. He came down and created the menorah. And the menorah represented those 6 planets and the sun. So now, when he put the fire on the candle, don't think that fire represents light. What is that light? That's what we're going to go through. All right, so now, let's go back into Exodus. Let's read, let's start at 27. 27, 20 through 21. And thou shalt command the children of Israel that they bring the pure oil, olive beating for the light, to cause the lamp to burn always. So on top of the candlestick, right? The light's supposed to last forever. It was supposed to be a forever burning light. Don't forget, I'm telling y'all that the light represented Christ's inauguration as the high priest. So we're actually showing it. So right now we got to go through the allegorical things saw inside of the tabernacle to explain this. So now, in the tabernacle of the congregation, without the veil, which is before the testimony, Aaron, high priest, and his sons, the priests, shall order it from evening to morning before the Lord. It shall be a statute forever unto their generations on the behalf of the children of Israel. So now, for my people to say, you see, it said that we're supposed to do the law of Moses forever. And forever means forever. No. No, no, no. It's forever in that covenant. When that covenant is over, the forever of that covenant is over. So, When he said the laws were supposed to be done forever, he meant forever in that covenant. Not in a new covenant. When a new covenant comes, you got to take things from the old covenant and do it because forever means forever. No. No. That's not the understanding. So, and notice here it says they have to have the light, and it has to light always. And they're going, Aaron's the high priest and his sons will keep that light going on from evening to morning, right? That was introduced in Genesis 1. And God called the light day. He saw the light. It was good. It divided the light from the darkness. He called the light day, and darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So they're just pulling from that same type of speech. So the evening and the morning, the light is always there. Okay? The light is always there. From evening to morning, the light always is there. So now, let's go to Numbers 8, 1 through 3. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, don't forget Aaron, high priest, when thou lightest the lamps. So the high priest lights the lamps, right? The 7 lamps shall give light over against the candlestick. So now, the high priest lights the lamp, and that light that he created lights the 7 lamps, right? So now, remember the lamps or the 7 represented the planets and the sun. So now, you have the light giving light to the whole world. What did Christ say? Well, we're going to read it later. We're going to read what Christ said about him giving light to the whole world. This is what's going on. You see the allegorical, and then you see the reality of what's being said. So here, verse 3, and Aaron did so. He lighted the lamps thereof over against the candlestick as the Lord commanded Moses. So we got the high priest creating the light, and through that light that the high priest created, it lit the whole candlesticks, which represented the world. Okay. So let's go back to Exodus 30. I hope this is all making sense to you guys. Hopefully. Exodus 30, 7 and 8. And Aaron shall burn thereof, don't forget Aaron high priest, sweet incense every morning when he dresses the lamp. He shall burn incense upon it. And when Aaron lighted the lamps at evening, so we got the evening and the morning again, dealing with lighting, dealing with burning, dealing with dressing. He shall burn incense upon it. It is a perpetual incense before the Lord throughout your generations. So now, and if you think perpetual means forever, why come we're not doing it now? It was just for that covenant, guys. But, so we have Aaron, the high priest, burning sweet incenses. We got him dressing the lamps every day, all day, every day. He's lighting the lamps. He's dressing the lamps. He's making incense or sweet savors every day before the Lord. What does the lamps represent? The world. So we got Aaron lighting the world every day. That's what it stands for. Aaron is lightening the world. The high priest is lightening the world every day. All right, 2 Chronicles 13, 10 and 11. But as for us, the Lord our God, and we have not forsaken him, and the priests which minister unto the Lord are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites wait upon their business. And they burn unto the Lord every morning and every evening burnt sacrifices and sweet incense. They're giving the sacrifices and the incense to the Lord every day. The showbread also set they in order upon the pure table, and the candlestick of gold with the lamps thereof to burn every evening. For we keep the charge of the Lord our God, but ye have forsaken him. So every day, you got to understand this. Every day, morning, evening, morning, every single day, the high priest has to keep the light lit for the world. It represented the 70 nations as well as the children of Israel. Okay? So now, let's get more into it. Let's look from another perspective, okay? Let's go to Zechariah 4. Zechariah 4. We're going to read 1 and 2. And the angel that talked with me came again and waked me, as a man that is wakened out of his sleep, and said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, and the bowl upon top of it, and his 7 lamps thereon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps, which are upon the top thereupon. So he saw what they call the menorah, correct? Correct? He saw the menorah. And we're going to go down to verse 10. Are we? Let's see here. Yes. For who has despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice, and shall see the plummet of the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7. They are the eyes of the Lord, which run to and fro through the whole earth. So now, you got one instance, the candlesticks represents the word. Now, you have another understanding being introduced, which is they represent also the 7 spirits. And what does the 7 spirits do? Run to and fro through the whole earth. So now, let's give an understanding on exactly how all this means. You know, how can it be one and the other? We're finna give an understanding. Revelation 1. I'm going to read 4. Well, let's read 3. Blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, which is the book of Revelation, and keep those things which are written therein. For the time is at hand. And I told y'all earlier that Revelation was about the destruction of Jerusalem, 1st century. So John the Revelator was telling them, everything that I'm going to tell you, the time is at hand. The time is close. Not thousands of years in the future, and it has nothing to do with you guys, even though I'm writing you guys. No, he was teaching the 7 churches which are in Asia. And it says right here, John to the 7 churches which are in Asia, Asia Minor. Grace be unto you and peace from him which is, which was, and which is to come, and from the 7 spirits which are before his throne. Right? So we have the throne. Where's the throne? In heaven. We have 7 spirits standing before him in heaven. So now we have the planets and the sun that Moses saw, which represented the menorah. And then we have before the throne also 7 spirits, which could represent the menorah. So we're gonna show you how all of this goes together. Revelation 1 and 13. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girth about the paps with a golden girdle. So now let's look at the word mist right there, right? Revelation 1:13. And in the midst, what is it there? Mist right here. Meso, in the middle, or among them, between them, right? So between So between in the middle of the seven candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle, which is the high priest wear. So now we have the seven. So John the Revelator is seeing seven golden candlesticks, right? In the seven golden candlesticks, he have the Son of Man in the middle of it. So now, if the menorah represented 6 planets, and in the middle of it was the sun, right? And now we have 7 candlesticks, and in the middle of it is the Son of Man. How's all this going on? Like, what's all this dealing with each other? Okay, let's try to make a correlation. You go to Malachi 4. Malachi 4, 1 and 2. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, and they that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, shall the Lord of hosts, then shall leave them neither root nor branch. This is the destruction of Jerusalem by the Roman army, right there. But unto you that fear my name, shall the Son of righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye shall go forth and grow up as the calves of your stall. So we have the Son of righteousness arising, right? Sun, S-U-N. Let's see what that sun is right there. Brilliant, the sun, implication the east, figuratively, a ray, a notch. So it could be the sun or a ray, right? I'm going to say, I believe it represents the sun. And this will make perfect sense when Christ actually representing that sun that gives light to the whole creation. He gives light to the whole creation, the 6 planets, and then you got that one, that number 7 in the middle of them that divide the first 3 and the second 3. That one in the middle gives lights to the other candlestick. So I believe it would be Christ would be that Son of righteousness in the middle that gives light to the menorah or the other candlesticks or the world or the creation. That's what I believe is going on here. Now, you might believe something different. I would love to hear what you believe, but that's what I believe. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like unto the Son of Man, I think that would be the Son of Righteousness right there. Clothed with garment down to the foot, and the girt about the paps with a golden girdle. So we have Christ right here being part of the menorah. Right there. And then verse 20. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the 7 angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. So, in this vision, the menorah that John is seeing is the 7 churches. And I believe that this is Christ being part of the menorah. Christ being part, he's been that Son of righteousness that's giving light to the 7 churches. Now, I would believe that maybe Philadelphia, the church of brotherly love, would be the one that stands on Christ's teachings the most, which meant that that would be a representation of him in the menorah or the Son of righteousness. But once again, you can take it or leave it. It's just what I get from it. I got Christ being the menorah, and then I have in the middle of Christ being the menorah, he's lightening the churches like he's lightening the whole creation. But I want to show you something else, another parallel, right? Dealing with the 7. Because Christ could I believe Christ is part of the menorah. And let me show you why I said that also from Zechariah. Let me show you why I said that. And when I mean him being part, he's that light. He's that light in the menorah. He's the light. He's that light that they put on top of each candlestick. I believe that light represents the 7 spirits which all represents Christ. So I believe Christ is that light that they put on each of the candlestick. I believe that light represents the priesthood that he brings, and it gives life and light to the whole creation, including the 7 churches. Hopefully that all made sense when I was able to put it all together. And let me show you why I say that. You go to Zechariah 3, right? Zechariah 3, 8. Hear now, O Joshua, the high priest. So we got Joshua being the high priest. Thou and thy fellows that sit before thee. For they are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch. And those things coming out of menorah was called branches. It's just a correlation, I believe. For behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. Okay? So we got one stone having 7 eyes. Okay? Behold, I will engrave the engraving thereon, said the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. Right? So you got 7 eyes upon one stone, and that day, said the Lord of hosts, ye shall call every man his neighbor under the vine and under the tree. So now, you go to Zechariah 4, and the angel talked with me, and the angel that talked to me came again and waked me as a man waking out of his sleep, and said unto me, what seest thou? And I said, I have looked, and behold, a candlestick of all gold with a bowl upon on top of it, and his eyes, and his 7 lamps thereupon, and 7 pipes to the 7 lamps which are upon the top thereof. So I believe, if we keep the scripture in context and being true, and not dividing it with chapters and verses, I believe that Zechariah is saying this 7 eyes that was seen upon the stone. See, for behold, the stone I have laid before Joshua, and upon one stone shall be the shall be is added. Upon one stone 7 eyes. Behold, I would engrave the engraving thereupon. So I believe that in the vision, when he saw Joshua, he saw that Joshua had a stone with 7 eyes standing before him, and he understood, sorry, that was Zechariah 4, that represented the menorah. It represented the 7 lamps, right? It represented that base that had the 7 lamps. That's what I believe it represents. But if you say you don't believe that it represents that, let's look at another way. So you have one stone that has 7 eyes upon it, right? Then you go to Revelation 5 and 6. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne. So, right? Remember, and let me show you again. Zechariah 3. Let's see what was it we at? Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, yeah. Thou and thou fellows that sit before thee. I will bring my servant the branch. For behold, that stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. So now, where's Joshua at right now? Three and 1. He showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuked thee, O Satan, and blah, 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 this and that. So Joshua is inside of the throne room, which is inside of the temple. So you have Joshua inside of the throne room, inside of the temple, and he said, I'm going to give him, behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, right? Upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. So you got the stone laid before Joshua, right? So let me see here. And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord. And if you guys don't know, I teach from my understanding, from my research, that Yahweh is not the Father, El Elyon is the Father, and Yahweh was the Word. Yahweh is the angel of the Lord, not the Father. So I believe that El Elyon was the Father and Yahweh is the angel. So you have Joshua, the high priest, standing before Yahweh, the angel. And then you go down right here. For behold, the stone I have laid before Joshua. So what's before Joshua? The angel of the Lord, Yahweh. And upon one stone shall be 7 eyes. So you go back into Revelation chapter 5, 6. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne, so they're back in the throne room again, of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood a lamb, and it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth in all of the earth. I believe that lamb would be Yahweh. He would have been considered the Christ that came on earth to save his people, because Israel was his portion. So that lamb would have been Yahweh. That same stone that had 7 eyes that stood before Joshua, which was the angel of the Lord, which would be the same lamb that has 7 eyes. So the stone had 7 eyes. Now the lamb has 7 eyes. I believe they're the same thing. One is called a stone and the other one is called a lamb. And I'll show you why in just a second. Which are the 7 spirits of God sent before unto all the earth. So that lamb had the 7 spirits of the Father upon him. And why does Zechariah call him a stone? Well, in Daniel 2, you have the stone. Hold on, let me show you. Right here, 34. Thou sawest that a stone was cut out without hands and smote the image on his feet that was of iron and clay. So, I believe that's the reason why he said a stone that had 7 spirits. Because that stone right there would have represented Christ and his kingdom. So, we have right there that Christ is being called the things that's going on in the menorah is related directly to Christ. So once again, we're showing that Genesis 1, 3-5 is about Christ. So we then went through the allegorical representation of how Christ represented that Son of Righteousness, which gave light to all of creation, and that was exemplified by the menorah. And the menorah also represented the 7 churches, and Christ giving the light to those 7 churches. So now, let's go back to Genesis 1, and we're going to show you even more correlations. Remember, John 1:1 said, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, and the Word was that light, right? And in Genesis 1:3, God said, let there be light, and there was light. So I would say that this is Christ getting his inauguration inside of the high priest, him being inaugurated to be the high priest over creation. So now, and when the Father saw that Christ was the high priest, he realized it was good to have his Son being the high priest, and he divided the light, that high priesthood, from the evils of the world. So now, let's go into a little bit more detail if that's not doing it for you. Let's go into a little bit more detail. Let's use Isaiah. Let's start at Isaiah 9, 1 and 2. Nevertheless, the dimness shall not be such as was in her vexation, when at the first he lightly afflicted the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterwards did more grievously afflict her by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, in Galilee of the nation. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them had light shine. So this is what I was saying earlier. The light represented the life that Christ brought. The darkness represented the death, or the people that went against the word. The light represented the word, his high priesthood, and doing all of the things that he said that pleased the Father. And the darkness represented the opposite, the death, doing the things that don't please the Father. So now, Isaiah 49 and 6. And hold on. Before we go to Isaiah 49 and 6, my bad. Let's go to Matthew 4. Just in case. Let's start at 12. Now when Jesus had heard that John was cast into prison, he departed into Galilee. And leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the seacoast in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, that it may be fulfilled which was spoken about Isaiah the prophet, or Isaiah, saying, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, by the way of the sea beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people which sat in darkness saw great light. And to them which sat in the regions in the shadow of death, light is sprung upon. Verse 17, from that time Jesus began to preach and to say, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So who was that light? The light was Christ, right? So Christ, the people that was in darkness, saw Christ, saw that light, and that light came unto them. And the people who denied him, they were still in death, but the people who acknowledged him and did what he said, they became partakers of that same light. Once again, Genesis 1 and 4. Well, Genesis 1, 3, and 4. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. This is all about the ministry of the high priest. Christ being the high priest, it was on Christ to give the people, the creation, the will of the Father. And that will either produce light or darkness. Darkness for the people who did not do the will, light for the people that did do the will. But let's keep going. Now, let's go to Isaiah 49 and 6. And he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserve of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So that stops Israel only, right there. So now this light was going to bring back Israel into the fold, bring that covenant, a new covenant, but not only that, they was then going to, that same light was going to bring in the Gentiles also. See, Christ was the high priest over creation, not just the high priest over Israel. It's a light thing to be just a high priest over a particular people when you can be high priest over everybody. So Christ changed the priesthood that was given under the Mosaic covenant that only dealt with Israel. He changed that priesthood and gave it the original meaning when mankind was first introduced on the planet, aka Adam and Eve and his descendants, who were not Israelites. Christ was the high priest over them. Then he gave Adam a section of the priesthood, which Adam did not do correctly, and he got expelled from the garden, causing death walking away from the light, being in darkness, caused that death to occur. But now, let's go back here. I will give thee a light to the Gentiles, right? Isaiah 60. This is all Genesis. Isaiah is looking back on Moses and explaining through the Holy Spirit what's going on in Genesis 1. That's all he's doing. You just got to get back into our ancestor, the thoughts of our ancestors. You got to leave all of this carnality, all of this physical aspect, wanting everything literal. You got to leave all of that alone and go back into the mindset of our ancestors to understand what the Bible is speaking on. So now, Isaiah 60:1, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen up. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth. So we have darkness in the beginning, right? And gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall arise thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee, and the Gentiles shall come to the light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. So that's supposed to put you in the mind of the sun rising up, the sun of righteousness rising up, giving light to all darkness. This is what's going on. Darkness covered the whole earth, and light was introduced to all. That's Genesis. That's Genesis 1 and 3. And God saw the light was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. You see, darkness was already there. See? And Genesis 1 and 2. And darkness was upon the face of the deep. This is the understanding that man had without understanding how to please the Father. Y'all don't hear me now. You're not getting it into the allegorical meaning of Genesis. You're trying to make it all carnal. This is what's going on in Genesis. When the temples was created, before he started, before he introduced mankind, right? Before he brought mankind up, before he gave them knowledge, it was only things, there was no way to please the Father presented on earth. So that represents darkness. No way to please the Father was represented on earth. So now, first thing happened, the high priest was created, and that high priest was to give light to everything that displeased the Father. It was supposed to show how to please the Father. And we're going to keep going on and see why the animals and all that stuff was introduced and etc. We're going to go through all of that. Not today, but we're going to go through it. So now, let me show you something real fast. Let me show you about the high priest. I'm telling y'all the word. Let's go back to John, just in case. Just in case we need to read this real fast. Let's go back to John. And then we're going to keep more showing you about this light. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him, anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. So the Word was the light that had to shine in the darkness, even though the darkness comprehended it not. So when men came about, they finally started understanding how to please the Father until they got that self-knowledge, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and then these covenants came about. But there's too much to get into right now. So now, arise, arise, for the light is come. For behold, darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness all the people, and the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, which is Christ, or the Word, and the kings the brightness of thy rising, right? So then we go to Psalms 119. 105. I guess we can read 104 first. Through thy precepts I get understanding, therefore I hate every false way. So now, everybody, let's segue first. Psalms 119, 104, right? Through thy precepts, many, pakad, properly appointed, a mandate, right? Commandment, precept, from out of many incenses. So from your many commandments, I get understanding, right? Where is that at? Hold on. So we're going to go to Isaiah 28 and 10. Isaiah 28 and 10. For precept, you see that word right there? An injunction, a commandment or a precept, right? An injunction upon precept. An injunction, a commandment or precept. Let's see what injunction is. In Greek, it actually tells you it means infliction. It means an authoritative warning or order. In the Greek, like I said, the Greek has affliction right there, which predates this right here. But anyway, for precept must be upon precept. You see that word right there is solve, right? That's different. That's H6673. That's different from let me write that down. It's H6673. Now we go back to Psalms. I'm just pointing this out. That's different from Psalms right here. This precept, which is H4480. Two totally different words, right? Or you got right here 6490. Plural only, collectively for the law, a commandment, precept, or statute, right? So these are different words for precepts, right? Precept upon precept, that's not the same precept that's found here. So you got to do your due diligence to do word study to find out what precept upon precept actually means, dealing with what's going on in Isaiah compared to what's going on in Psalms, because these are two different words for precepts. So if you're precepting upon precepting, make sure we understand what is being said. So now, Psalm 119, 105. And I'm going to go to 104 again. Through thy precepts I get understanding, which through the commandments. Therefore I hate every false way. Thy word. Who is the word? Christ, the Most High. Christ, the Messiah. Yahweh, the Most High. If you want to put a title on the Most High, we got to see which one we're talking about. So now, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet. Now we know that we see lamps also in the menorah, and a light, we see the light in the menorah, unto my path. So what's doing this? Thy word. Okay, this would be the Logos. This would be Christ, the word of the Lord. Thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. Okay, so now, Let's go and look at this light more. Let's look at this light more. And we're about to wrap it up pretty soon. So you go to Luke 2:26. And it was revealed unto him by the Holy Spirit that he should not see death before he had seen the Lord's Christ. And he came by the Spirit into the temple. And when the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him after the custom of the law, then he took up in his arms and blessed God and said, Lord, now lettest thou servant depart in peace according to thy word. For mine eyes have seen thy salvation, which thou hast prepared before the face of all people, a light to lighten the Gentiles in the glory of thy people Israel. Ain't that the same thing we read in Isaiah 49:6? Look, a light to lighten the Gentiles and glory of thy people Israel. That's exactly what Isaiah said. Isaiah 49:6. It is a light thing that thou shalt be a servant to raise up the tribes of Israel and to restore the preserve of Israel. The tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserve of Israel. I will also give thee a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. So that's talking about Christ right there. And in Luke 2, what did he say? Right here, 30. For mine eyes have seen thy salvation. He said, you're going to be my salvation. Now he's saying, thy eyes have seen thy salvation, to let you know that Christ was the salvation spoken of in Isaiah 49:6. And he was going to be that light to lighten the Gentiles. Right? If that's not enough for you, John 8:12. Then spake Jesus unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. Genesis 1. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. John 1. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. John 8:12. Then spake Jesus unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. Let's look at the word world right there. Should be cosmos. I don't know if it's age. Yeah, cosmos, the world right there, not age. So I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but he shall have the light of life. Hopefully we're understanding that Genesis 1 is about the inauguration of Christ into the priesthood, and him being that light under the priesthood to give to the world. So now, John 9:5. As long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. John 12:35. Then Jesus said unto them, yet a little while is the light with you. Walk while ye have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. 46. Well, I guess I can read the next one. While ye have light, believe in the light, that ye may be the children of light. These things spake Jesus, and departed, and did hide himself from them. So who was the light? Christ. Right? So now, let's go to 46. I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. So you had darkness in the world first, and then Christ brought the light. What do we have here in Genesis 1? Darkness in the world first, and then light was brought that was good in the sight of the Most High, which I say this represents the inauguration of Christ into the high priesthood. So now, let's go to Hebrews 4:14-15. Seeing then that we have a high priest that is passed into the heavens, Jesus the Son of God, let us hold fast our profession. So now we got the high priest going up into heaven, right? He was in heaven being the high priest. And what was the high priest in charge of on earth, which was a shadow of what was going on in heaven? The high priest on earth, starting with Aaron, was in charge of lighting the menorah, which represented the world, which represented the 6 planets, and the sun, which represented also the 7 churches in Revelation. So this is his duty, to light the world. Hebrews 6:20. Whether the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, made an high priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So it tells you that Christ was that high priest. Ephesians 4:10. He that descended is the same also that ascended up far above all heavens, that he might fill all things. So he's the light to all. He has filled all things. He's the light to all. So now, let's end it with a little bit more historical information and we'll be done. Antiquity of the Jews, book 3. I got to show y'all something else. Chapter 8. See, it's the priesthood of Aaron. Section 9. I will now treat of what I before omitted, the garment of the high priest, for he, Moses, left no room for the evil practices of false prophets. But if some of that sort should attempt to abuse the divine authority, he left it to God to be present at his sacrifices when he pleased, and when he pleased to be absent. And he was willing this should be known. not to the Hebrews only, but to those foreigners also who were there. For as to those stones which we told you before, the high priest bare on his shoulders. So now notice the high priest have these stones on his shoulders, which were sardonyxes. And I think it needless to describe their nature, they being known to everybody. The one of them shined out when God was present at their sacrifices. So you got the stone shining out. The high priest is wearing the ephod and the breastplate has the stone shining from him. So at this point in time, the high priest is shining. It looks like the high priest is shining because what he's wearing is shining. So we have something similar to the high priest shining when the Father was present of the sacrifice. I mean that which was in the nature of a button on his right shoulder, bright rays darting out thence, and being seen even by those that were most remote. So he shined very, very brightly, which splendor yet was not before natural to that stone. This had appeared a wonderful thing to such as had not so far indulged themselves in philosophy as to despise divine revelation, yet without mention what is still more wonderful than this. For God declared beforehand by those 12 stones which represented the 12 tribes of Israel, which the high priest bare on his breast, and which were inserted into his breastplate, when they should be victorious in battle. For such great a splendor shone forth from them before the army began to march, that all people were sensible of God's being present for their assistance, which it came to pass that those Greeks who had a veneration for our laws, because they could not possibly contradict this, called the breastplate the oracle. Now this breastplate and this sardonyx left off shining 200 years before I composed this book, God having been displeased at the transgression of his laws, of which things we shall further discourse in a further opportunity, but I would now go on my proposed narration. So you have for an instant, the high priest was shining when the Father was present for the sacrifices and when they was going to have victory in battle. So you have instances that the high priest himself was shining. The high priest himself from afar off looked like a light. You had the high priest being the light of the nation when the children of Israel was to look upon him as the Father represented his nature upon him. So now, hopefully we all understand. I have been doing this for an hour 30 minutes, so I didn't go too far off. But hopefully we understand that Genesis 1, 3 through 5 represented Christ being inaugurated as the high priest, that allowing him to bring the things that please the Father into the world, right? So in the beginning, it started off small. It was darkness around, which meant there was no way to please the Father. So the Word created this. This is doing the temple. The Word created this environment that pleased the Father, bringing light to all creation, because now everything that pleased the Father was in existence, which represented Christ's works of him being light. It represented that light that shined from the high priest upon all the creation, which pleased the Father. So it just represents the pleasing of the Father. That's what that light represented. And Christ was that light, being that first high priest. And that high priest he came down on earth in bodily form, and he took all of the darkness of man that came with death or not knowing how to please the Father. Through the law, it brought forth the knowledge of exactly what was displeasing to the Father. This is why the law brought forth sin and made sin exceedingly great, because at this point in time, they actually saw the rule book of the things that actually displeased the Father. So instead of them trying to go into the narrative that pleased the Father, they tried to create loopholes and kept falling short because they could not actually comprehend the light inside of the law. They only stuck with the carnality. So he brought a new covenant anyway that dealt away with all of that carnality, with all of the curses and etc., bringing in that new covenant. But we can discuss that later on in some of my channel if you want to know all of this extra information. What we're doing here, RPK, which represents a resurrection, prophecy, and kingdom. We're concentrating on those three subject matters: resurrection, prophecy, and kingdom. So we're starting at Genesis to show you the kingdom, which has to have the knowledge of the Most High, which was to please the Most High. And I'm gonna go through that pretty much on my personal channel to show you that light, when a person pleases the Most High, he is said to be in the likeness of Christ, which was a light. He represented light. And that's why in the Bible, when everybody always got wisdom, the wisdom of the Most High, who pleased Christ, they was always called children of light, offspring of light. It means you have the same characteristics of your father. So if you are the child of light, that means your father is light. So if your father shines, that means you shine. And you can go through Daniel, Isaiah, and etc. when it tells how the people shined. It wasn't saying that they were walking around like Edward off of Twilight, glittering always. No, that's not what it's saying. It's not saying that they walked around looking like a flashlight and people was looking at them like, whoa, that's scary. No, it's saying that on your inward man looks just like my background, right? Your flesh, you cannot see your spirit. Your spirit is inside of your flesh. The Father sees your spirit. He sees the inward man. So that's why we must worship him inwardly, because the inward man is what he cares about, not this flesh. He wants the inward man to live forever. And your inward man, if you're, that's why when you go into Zechariah, right? Remember Joshua being the high priest, he had on filthy garments, right? And those filthy garments represented that darkness that was upon his spirit. And then when he got, I don't want to butcher it. I don't know if he was the one that was touched with the coals on his mouth or not, or was he the one that they gave gave him new garments that made him shine. I think he was the one that got the new garments that made him shine. But I don't want to butcher it. So let me be sure. That would be Zechariah 3. Right? Let's see here. Would it be 2? Let's see here. Zechariah 3, 4, and 5. Zechariah 3, verses 4 and 5. And he answered and spake unto those that stood before him, saying, take away the filthy garments from him. So that's that dark, his soul, right? The things that his soul produces, the darkness inside of him. And unto him he said, behold, I have caused thine iniquity to pass from thee. So his inward man, right? When this was a vision. So Joshua wasn't up there before the Most High in the throne room in heaven in his bodily form. Flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of heaven. So this was something more spiritual. The spirit man inherits the kingdom of heaven. So in the spirit man, you got Joshua sitting right there before the Most High in filthy garments, which represented dirt, darkness, right? And when he gave him a new garment, it said that represented the iniquity leaving off of Joshua, right? So now, and I will clothe thee with change of raiment. And I said, let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they shall set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments, and the angel stood. So now, you can see the same thing in Revelation, and I'm not going to go past this. You see the same thing in Revelation chapter 7, where, dang it, 6 and 7. You can see it in 6 when 10 and 11, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on earth? And white robes were given unto them. So they took off their iniquity. Their white represents the shining. It represents shine. I'm not going to go too far into it. I can't go too far into it, but I got to show you, my bad. It represents the shining. And you go to Revelation 7 and 9, and I beheld, and lo, a great multitude with no man could number, of all nations and kindreds and people and tongues, stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes and palms in their hand. And then you go to Daniel 12 after the tribulation period. Daniel 12 and verse 2 and 3. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life. Remember that life? Christ said, I am the light that brings life. So now, listen to what it says. Listen to what he said in John. I am the light, L-I-G-H-T, that brings life, L-I-F-E. So now, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. So you got some awaking, right, to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. So everlasting life, remember, life and light. So once you go to verse 3, and they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. So they was getting under the light, which represented Christ in his teaching, and that caused them not outward but inward. These people had resurrected to spiritual life, and they took off of these black garments and put on the light, right? The light you see in my background. This is how their inward man looks to the Father. Through his spiritual eyes, he can see the outward man, but he's concentrating on the inward man. That's why he said, judge not by the appearance, but by the inside. What's going on the inside? The inside is shining like my background. So people's inside that puts on Christ. This is that change that Paul was talking about. Many in a twinkle of an eye, they all should change. They took off their dark garments inwardly and put on the light inwardly and start shining. So Christ brought that light, which is the things that pleases the Most High. That's what that light represents. Let me show you. Daniel 12 and 3. And they that be wise shall shine. The wisdom of the things that pleases Christ. In garden of the tree in the garden. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil inside of the garden. Sorry about that, y'all. Blah 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 blah. But the tree, so many things going to my mind. I'm trying to hurry up. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil inside of the garden. That's Eve ate that in order to make herself wise. These were things that made mankind wise, that pleased mankind. The tree of life was the things that pleased the Father. So earthly wisdom versus heavenly wisdom was the problem. They wanted more earthly wisdom, and she wanted to be even wiser than her husband, and etc., who at that time only had heavenly wisdom. So you have all of these things that the Bible teaches. So that in the beginning was the light, and the light separated from the darkness and all of that. All of that is just saying that the high priest, Christ became high priest, and through him, he did all the things. He created everything that was going to please the Father. He made sure that everything on earth pleased the Father, and that was good to the Father, and everything was great until mankind said, I want to please myself over pleasing the Father. And that's why when John came on the scene, he said, hey, Christ was actually that light that Moses was talking about in Genesis. This is what that represented. That heaven and earth, Christ let it be known that that actually was the temple. And inside that temple, light came about, which was the priesthood. It came about. And then it was up to people to believe on Christ in order to please the Father. Or you're going to believe on your own wisdom, which you see, and you see the same thing today. People try to use their own mental wisdom in order to figure out scriptures, or try to use their own mental wisdom to try to figure out how things work. And when you tell them about faith, which is what Christ taught, hey, you don't need all that. Just believe on Christ, be baptized and all that stuff. Oh, so you saying all I got to do is believe? You telling me I gotta just have blind faith and just go believe on everything? So if I take a gun and shoot myself in the head, or take a bullet, the gun with the bullet, and I'll pull it. If I believe that the bullet won't come out, I'll be okay. No, you're tempting the Most High. What are you doing? That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to believe that throughout this whole world, your sinful nature is not stopping you from having a relationship with the Father. You're supposed to believe that when you need guidance, when you need help, when you need strength, you have an advocate, and you have a Father that would graciously help you out any way that he sees fit you to be helped. And throughout all of the wiles of this world, you have a renewed mind, so you don't even view the world like people view the world. There's bad and good in everything. He reigned on the just and the unjust alike. But you having a renewed mind, you having that light, you being that light, you don't view things like the world view things. You see things for the big picture. Okay, I see this is going on, this is hard. I mean, this and that. But this is the good thing, I still have this. I still have that. I'm still surviving. I'm still living. I still have enough time to bring more people into the kingdom. You're not worried about all that stuff. But this is what having that light does. I am done because right now I'm just talking on and on and on and on. Shalom, Queen. I'm finna end it. So once again, please share the video. This is my breakdown, part 2, Genesis 1:3-5. Sorry about that. Resurrection, prophecy, and kingdom. RPK. 11 subscribers. Y'all, come on. We're dropping bombs, y'all. We have bombs. We have great information. Now, I know you all might not agree with it because we don't live in fantasy world, and we tell y'all, yeah, the Bible has been fulfilled. We can prove you how the Bible has been fulfilled, and we're in the new heaven and the new earth, and y'all have to grasp the information so you know what to be doing in this kingdom right now. I know we don't live in fantasy world, and we ain't going to appease to your own personal desires, but y'all, we dropping some heat. Hopefully, I pray that it's Holy Spirit inspired, but we're dropping heat. We're dropping bombs. We need more than 11 subscribers. Click the video. Well, you already on the video, but like the channel, okay? Find the channel. It's right there. RPK, Resurrection Prophecy Kingdom. It's on my Facebook. Share it. Subscribe. Come on, y'all. We need more than 11. Watch the videos and etc. If you got any questions, concerns, or complaints, you can hit me up or hit one of my brothers up. Hit the comment section up on our YouTube channel. Okay. So that's our university channel, RPK, Resurrection Prophecy and Kingdom. You see, we have a few videos. We got more to upload by the admin. And then we got my personal channel right here. AOSDCHANDLER. Assembly of Sound Doctrine channel. Where you see that I have a plethora more of videos and understandings and breakdowns. I have my playlist right here. I have 29 debates. Things about the tribulation period, and just like a plethora of videos that goes into thorough breakdowns of everything we teaching, how shows you how the Bible has been fulfilled through several different angles. break down some hard scriptures and etc. So we have it all right here, also at the Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. But for the university class, where we talked about, where we concentrate on resurrection, prophecy, and kingdom, these three elements, this is the place for you. So any one of them will be great for you. Thank you all for listening in. I love you all, and let's keep doing the work. And the brother dropped the link for the channel. So please, please, please continue to do the work. This is Elvin Israel, one of the instructors at the resurrection, at the University of the Resurrection, Prophecy, and Kingdom. Thank you. Love you all. And remember, we're in the kingdom. Shalom.